Now we are going to turn our attention to South Africa. Stocks, they're seeing a positive end to the week, and my gosh, they could certainly use it. Africa has been in focus all this week on the Express, and to cap it off, we are now joined by the CEO of Johannesburg Stock Exchange, Nicky Newton-King. She joins me now from New York. Thanks very much for joining us. Really appreciate it. I mean, look, South Africa has needed that rebound. They have needed that comeback. In terms of what you see going forward, you know, the market changes so much, especially when you look at the kind of, East Africa rising right now, the likes of Ethiopia and Kenya, really trying to compete with South Africa for those investment dollars. What are the challenges right now for you guys to get South Africa back on that economic footing that you really need it to be at?
Yeah, Paula, you're absolutely right. We are competing for those investment dollars. That said, South Africa is a very noisy democracy, and today we've been in New York essentially telling investors that the government is very focused on the things that need to change. Getting momentum in growth is really the big issue. We have a very strong approach to fiscal discipline. We have a very strong independent judiciary, a strong independent Reserve Bank, and a very committed business class, all of whom are directed on making the country very successful. So we think we compete extremely well, and certainly that's the message we've been conveying to the US investor base, and I think that's been very well received.
And in terms of being well received, you guys want people to know that South Africa is open for business on a different level now. One thing that concerns them is governance, and of course that's where the stock exchange comes in. In terms of those governance issues, what kind of work have you been able to do to ensure investors that the rock solid principles of that governance are there?
Yeah, governance, you're absolutely right, is critical when it comes to building investor confidence. Well, we do have a very strong rule of law and a very good judiciary, but the governance layer, the standards by which listed companies are held to account, have certainly been challenged this year, like I know it's been challenged in other jurisdictions around the world in the last couple of years. But what we've been doing is essentially guiding listed companies and issuing guidance to listed companies about how boards of directors can behave, suggestions that we should look at diversity amongst boards as a way of encouraging really robust discussion. You know, the reality is that you can have as many rules as you like. If people are intent on avoiding them, then the rules will never catch that. What you've got to build is a sense that the compass is set properly and that people are driven to making sure that compass doesn't waver. And I think we're really doing that quite well, but we've had a very strong wake-up call, as you know, at the beginning of the year.
Absolutely, with the government saying that it will continue to keep an eye, obviously, on corruption and be in a completely different direction. I know investors will be looking to see signs of that. Appreciate you joining us today.
Pleasure. Thank you very much for having me.